Hello again. It's time to take a look at aggression, conflict, alliances, and coalitions. And this is quite a long lecture, so I've broken it up into, I think it's going to be into 4 parts. We'll take a look. So let's get started on part 1, aggression, conflict, alliances, and coalitions. And for this lecture, I want you to read a very short article from Science, I believe, on conflict resolution, and that will be a part of. That will be a part of this last component of the lecture. So let's introduce this lecture by thinking about aggression. What is it? What are some examples of it? When does it happen? And then we'll move into several different areas related to aggression. One of these is something called game theory that's used to help us understand when animals engage in aggression and when they don't. We'll talk about alliances and coalitions that animals regularly can engage in to gain access to much needed resources, and conflict resolution. How do animals deal with how do animals resolve their conflicts that they've just had? And there are some models about that. So first of all, just what is agonistic behavior? We hear that term a lot. Agonistic behavior is really fighting or aggressive behavior. And we see agonistic behavior in a variety of places, but typically we see agonistic behavior happening when there are limited resources. Okay? Animals are fighting for limited resources. The main 3 resources that we see agonistic behavior about include food, territory, and mates. Sometimes agonistic behavior can occur between individuals. Sometimes it occurs between groups. So let me give you some examples. Food. I don't know if you've ever put up a hummingbird feeder. Turns out that hummingbirds, and males in particular, are very aggressive at defending food resources. And so what typically happens at your hummingbird feeder is you'll have one dominant male that's incredibly aggressive, that tries to prevent other males from getting into the feeder or getting at the feeder. He will fly abruptly or quickly at any male or any other individual that comes near his feeder, if you will. This is true of lots and lots of animals. The golden-winged sunbird found in Africa will defend also nectar-filled flowers from intruders. We see this kind of behavior a lot. There's also agonistic behavior associated with fighting for territory, right? Male three-spine stickleback during the breeding season develop territories, individual territories, and in those territories they will build a nest, and they will defend their territory from any intruder, from any nearby rival. So when a rival comes swimming into the territory, our male stickleback will aggressively bite at the animal. He'll display toward the animal. He will do a lot of threat displays, but he will also then engage in an actual fighting at some point. This is also true of animals like gulls. These colonial living seagulls, or gulls, it's a better term there, will fight for their territory, to maintain a breeding territory, because of they basically want to protect their young from cannibalism, other gulls going at their young. So they need to have a territory to protect their young. And so you'll see them fighting over territories. Okay, sometimes animal groups fight over territories. And so when you read an article about hyenas, it turns out that hyena groups will fight each other to maintain their territories too. So you see these group boundaries, or lines, if you will, that in which you've got, hey, here's group A, here's group B, and there is a territory line. There are territories for these animals, and they fight to maintain them. And of course, there's the limited resource of mates. lots and lots of animals fight over mates. We've got a picture of that happening here, but just think about elk during the rutting season. During the rut, a single, typically large male elk will be able to defend a harem of females, a group of females, and he will have access to mate with them. He has to defend this harem from other single males, however, that regularly engage in fighting with them to try to win over the harem. Sometimes they try to just sneak a mating as well, but they will engage in this first in this kind of threatening display behavior, and then into full-on fights that can be quite costly in terms of injuries. Oh, and we do see agonistic behavior also when animals are trying to maintain a dominant status in their group. So social dominance is something that we see in social animals, not in all social animals, but in many of them. It's kind of like a pecking order, right? It's established in a social group, and it's maintained so that animals at the top of the hierarchy essentially have better access to mates or to territory or to resources like food, right? What are some examples of social dominance or dominant hierarchies? Well, our article on hyenas talks a lot about the hierarchical dominance in a hyena clan. At the very top is an alpha female. She may be the alpha female for years, and she has essential control over that group. She has top access to everything. Underneath her are the other females, and they are also carefully ranked from female number 2 down to female number 17 or whatever. And under them are the juveniles, and then under them at the very bottom of the ladder are adult males. You do not want to be an adult male and as a spotted hyena, apparently. So we see this very strict hierarchical structure, and that structure affects your access to food, for sure. It affects who is going to fight whom. It's going to affect how coalitions or alliances within the group can form. It has a huge impact on their lives. Another example of a species that forms a social dominance or has a hierarchical type of format would be primates. Lots and lots of primates. Black spider monkeys have kind of an interesting type of social group that forms. We call it a fission-fusion social group. Fission-fusion. So we've got this big group of individuals, but within a larger group of individuals, there are smaller groups that form, made up of, 5 or 6 individuals or even more, okay? And these smaller groups interact with each other. They interact within the group, and they interact between groups, and the whole group acts as a single population as well. So it's kind of a complex community, if you will, and it turns out that within that community, these smaller subgroups tend to be led by a dominant female, and the dominant female then will, kind of be in control over, where they're going to find food or which tree they get to get fruit from, etc. And it turns out that these dominant female subgroups can sometimes fight each other or displace each other in a fruit tree, for example. So one subgroup is essentially displacing another subgroup within their bigger population. It's a kind of complex structure, but there's this nice hierarchy. The females have a hierarchy, and even the males have a hierarchy. Well, what we're going to do now is we've got a little feeling for what is agonistic behavior, what are some examples of agonistic behavior, when does it happen, etc. Now we're going to take a look at a question that comes up a lot, or some questions that come up a lot, and the questions are, well, when does an animal know when to fight? How does an animal know that it's worth fighting? And when is it time to stop fighting? Okay, when is it time to give up? And how much does it cost to fight? All of these kinds of questions are things that animals need to somehow know in order to do their best to survive and reproduce, right? We're going to talk about how game theory, this is a particular model, is used to predict what animals are going to do during conflicts. And we'll do that in video 2. And that's it for this. I'm trying to find my